I'm Daniel with CoinDesk at Invest New York City 2019, sitting here with Rosario of OTCXN, which is a crypto intermediary. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your time in crypto and how you got involved.
Yeah, sure thing. So been involved in the space actually since about 2015. Actually got my start in it. It was from the FX space. I had basically built an FX ECN company that is now exited to an investment bank here in New York. Started looking at all of the exchanges that were popping up in the crypto space, and in the FX space, we had done a tremendous amount of liquidity aggregation and provided that as a service to our clients using our technology. Thought about doing something similar in the crypto space, and then realized that you actually can't do it because there was no way to clear and settle all of the business. And so I was learning a bit about blockchain at the same time, and had this aha moment where I realized that you could use blockchain in a combination of traditional technologies to actually create sort of a synthetic prime brokerage that would actually allow you to clear and settle all that business, including cross-exchange, and eliminate all the counterparty and settlement risk, which you traditionally do in the FX markets with a big balance sheet. You do it here with pure technology. And so that basically became the vision and ultimately what we built over about a almost 4-year technology build out.
That's interesting. So are you clearing traditional financial products as well as crypto on the blockchain?
Yeah, if you consider fiat currencies to be a traditional financial product. Yeah, so we're doing this in the spot FX market as well. So on our platform today, you can essentially trade crypto to crypto, fiat to crypto, and fiat to fiat as well.
Interesting. Is it all world currencies or specifically like US dollars and euros?
Yeah, well, most of it at the moment is US dollar based. It's mostly dollars against various crypto assets that are also deemed to be commodities like Bitcoin and ETH and so forth. So limited subset at the moment, moving into sort of more traditional spot FX, where we have more coverage, around especially G10 currencies, some emerging market currencies as well.
In your own words, what are the benefits of having immediate settlements?
Well, I think it's not necessarily just about immediate settlement, except from a legal financial point of view, right? It's not as if you need to have the assets to go do something else with the assets. In our world, it's our core value proposition is really the elimination of the counterparty and settlement risk. So you do get real-time clearing and settlement against provable assets that are on custodial blockchain ledgers that are part of the solution that we give to custodians. So you do have that sort of finality that happens with the change of ownership, effectively an atomic swap between one asset on one custodial ledger and another asset on another custodial ledger. But you also have the added benefit well, first and foremost is the risk elimination. But by retokenizing the assets, not just the fiat, but even the crypto assets, you do have immediate retradability of those assets without having to wait for a public ledger transaction. So it's kind of a layer 2, layer 3 kind of network where ultimately the trades hit, the net settlement amounts do hit the public ledger periodically when the custodians do net settlement movements.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the traders that use your platform? Is it mostly algorithmic, or do you have like actual retail traders using it?
Yeah, well, we don't have any retail traders because we're focused exclusively on the institutional space, but we have about 50 or so institutional clients that are signed up, that are at various stages of onboarding, and it runs the gamut, anything from folks that are operating an agency desk trading on behalf of other clients, to crypto native hedge funds, to prop trading shops, and market makers, all the usual suspects. But really, I think where we're really trying to put the majority of our focus is around folks who are fiduciaries that actually manage other people's assets and can't trade the way the markets in crypto trade today, and are actually require that sort of elimination of the counterparty and settlement risk in order to actually be in the market.
Yeah, sure. So you'd be talking about like family offices in that case? Or?
Well, family offices are trading their own capital, so they can kind of do whatever they want. Same like prop shops. Give you an example. We have one investment bank, which I won't name, that trades on behalf of all of the clients that that have an interest in crypto, that are clients of theirs. Where none of those clients are ever going to go do a block trade with a traditional market maker or open accounts on retail exchanges. So they're relying on us to sort of bring that liquidity, aggregate it, make it all tradable with one account at a custodian where they don't have any of that counterparty or settlement risk.
Okay. You serve as an intermediary between custodians and trading desks, essentially.
Of sorts. I mean, really, we're a technology provider. This is really pure technology, so we're never a counterparty to the trades, and we don't use our own balance sheet for anything. So there's a very big difference between what we're doing and what other firms, like maybe a Tagomi or an SFOX, the way they approach it. They basically become your counterparty. They're holding your assets, and they may put your assets at exchanges or set up credit lines with dealers. We don't do any of that. All of the parties on our network have provable assets at custodians and are transacting against those assets and doing so without any without any counterparty or settlement risk because of the mechanisms that we're using through the multi-custodian blockchain network that we have.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the blockchain that you use?
Yeah, actually, it's a proprietary stack that we built through much pain over quite a long period of time. It does use the same transaction model as Bitcoin, so there's kind of a UTXO set transaction model. But what's unique about it especially is that it's a multi-ledger architecture. So every custodian has a unique asset ledger per asset per custodian. And what that gives you is this sort of natural logical sharding in terms of transaction speed and throughput. Because if everybody shares a single ledger, it's essentially an I/O problem, right? Now we have folks like Kingdom Trust and Prime Trust with their own unique Bitcoin and dollar and ETH ledgers and so on. And we're able to effectively do an atomic swap between any asset ledger at any custodian and any last asset ledger at any other custodian, which is how we make sure that there's no risk. It's essentially a payment versus payment transaction.
You had a partnership recently, or actually at the beginning of the year with Securitize.
Yeah.
And so you were essentially doing the same thing for them, except for digitized tokens.
Yeah. So what we represent is a good question for Securitize or Harbor, or really anybody that's involved in the primary issuance. They all still, everybody in the space still has the problem of how do they aggregate all of the available liquidity? I mean, the name of the game in the security token market is liquidity, right? So if you have fragmentation like you do today with Bitcoin in a security, it really sort of kills the adoption and the potential in the early days. And so what we're able to do is the same kind of aggregation where we can facilitate cross exchange, clearing and settlement, and effectively make it so that those assets can trade at high frequency by retokenizing the tokens. So the primary issuance can happen into a wallet at a custodian, and then they can be tokenized from there as those parties can then, the issuers can then sell those transactions on the secondary market to other people on the network without any risk. And they can actually, ultimately, the vision for this, once we have the regulatory treatment for it, is to run an ATS where people can transact in these assets regardless of who the primary issuer is, what blockchain protocol it's sitting on underneath, or what exchange the asset is listed on. We can basically bring all that together for the benefit of everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up regulation. So I was going to ask, like, what regulatory body would oversee what you're doing, and what potential problems may they have with it? Or
yeah, it's a good question. Well, I mean, I think the biggest problem is really around educating people, and I'm happy to see things like, Paxos's SEC no action letter, because they're kind of explaining how they're approaching clearing and settlement. We do it a different way. I think in a more scalable and more interesting way than they're doing it as they wrote out in that no action letter. But to be clear, at the moment, we're not doing anything with digital securities. We're setting up all of the infrastructure and the partnerships. We're getting ready to pursue our own broker-dealer license and ATS license. At the moment, everything that we're doing is institutional only, spot only on the FX side and on the crypto side, and only with cryptos that we believe are commodities, so things like Bitcoin and ETH. And then we're only doing eligible contract participant business. So in that context, we're sort of identifying, I guess, with CFTC as our ultimate regulator, but relying on exemptions there because of the nature of what we're doing.
So you got into the business in 2015, and I was wondering how you thought the crypto industry has evolved since then.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we've seen it go through some sort of boom bust kind of cycles in terms of the hype and maybe the kinds of folks that were sort of coming into the space. I'm actually happy to see a little bit of that get washed out, and I think what I'm a bit surprised about is that now that custody is kind of a solved problem, there's a lot of conversation around the real institutional market, coming off the sidelines and coming into the space. And we firmly believe that, based on our conversations with those kinds of folks that people are referring to, that they're not going to come into the space without a solution like what we've created that gets rid of that counterparty and settlement risk. They just simply can't, as fiduciaries, transact in the way that proprietary trading firms are able to, or family offices, as you mentioned. So I'm a bit surprised that there's not more conversation around how to really grow the space so that we can actually bring the institutions in, get rid of all that credit risk. I mean, I talk to dealers as I walk around today, some of the biggest market makers, and they don't want to have any margin posted anywhere. They're trading, everything's on credit. You ask them how they mitigate those risks. They're trading on credit with people. They're giving credit to all their clients, and there's no margin deposits covering any of this because they're not regulated to hold client assets directly. And I just think that's a recipe for disaster, and that explains why we don't see traditional fiduciaries coming in droves. So our big task now is to sort of educate the market about a solution that we've built that exists that can mitigate all of those risks and allow a fiduciary to actually come in and participate in the space.
Interesting. So, I mean, given the amount of credit that's basically propping up the crypto industry right now, do you think it's insular enough that there is no contagion risk, or if the bubble bursts, will it kind of spread to the larger economy?
I don't think it will spread to the larger economy, but what I think it will do is it could provoke the wrong kind of response from regulators. I listen to things like Adam, talking about the guiding principles that they published today, around how these market participants should be interfacing with each other, and rules around sort of how they are going to settle transactions. I don't really think that that's enough. I think that unfortunately people are making hay while the sun shines, and they're able to make more money if they don't have capital tied up, and that's really the motivation for it. I think we'll have some event that will end badly, and that'll probably provoke not the response we want from the regulators and give everybody a bit of a wake-up call, but maybe it's what's needed. I think it's problematic the way the market operates today.
So far, what has been your favorite panel at Invest?
So far, my favorite panel, it was interesting to hear the general counsel of Paxos and general counsel of Genesis talking about Adam and sort of their vision for that. I think we adhere, so we sort of are big believers in the kind of principles that they're publishing, and we think we can actually implement that with technology and deliver a platform that serves the entire marketplace, at a very low cost. That will sort of foster those rules. So I thought that was a pretty interesting panel.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for
your
time.
This is nice to meet you. Thank you.